Welcome to Life on Earth. Welcome to Life on Earth. Well, hello, you good people.
Hello.
And welcome to Life on Earth. Today is November 18th, a very, very special day for very, very special reasons that we will share with you. But we didn't introduce ourselves. I'm Robert Nasir. This is Amy Nasir.
Yo.
I don't know. We have the usual intro, but I wanted to jump right to it because
do it.
Just got off of the communications boot camp with Don Watkins. Okay, very good one. He was talking to philosopher Chris Cathcart, reviewed an essay of his, all sorts of good. Anytime you put something in front of Don Watkins, he's going to tell you how to make it better. But he mentioned at one point, he said, a friend of mine has this expression. Oh, by the way, the paper was about the value of philosophy. And Don Watkins said, a friend of mine said, and I would swear it was Alex Epstein Steen? I always think of the old Welcome Back Kotter show, and it's the other way of pronouncing Epstein. Warren Epstein, so it must be Epstein. So
yes.
How many times can this go off the rails in the first 30 seconds? Don Watkins' friend, who I'm sure was Alex Epstein, said, it's like you're handing them a fistful of dollar bills when you're trying to advocate philosophy and objectivism in particular. And we're going to talk about that, among other things. But I don't have any show notes for you. If you want show notes, I usually have show notes, all sorts of valuable stuff. What you need to do after this show, I will post it on my Facebook wall. I will post it on my Twitter feed. You'll be able to take a look at it. Is you want to watch a YouTube video called How to Leverage Objectivism to Become a Leader in Your Field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is an early Alex Epstein video. He's talking to the Strive group, the student objectivists.
About 5 years ago.
And he tells a story about the first time he went to an objectivist meeting. And he kind of expected to see all sorts of super happy, super successful, wealthy people, like amazingly successful people who had leveraged objectivism to make their lives amazing. And he met a lot of good people, but, he was looking for miracles. And he didn't quite find them. It's a great video because he talks a little bit about how to do that. When he says how to become a leader in your field, he's not just talking about leadership. He's talking about life on Earth. So when I heard that, when I heard Don, I immediately thought of that lecture. That's what I'm going to link you to after the show. What's that got to do with what we're talking about today? Well, first of all, the whole premise of, why do we have a show called Life on Earth? Because Ayn Rand described her philosophy as a philosophy for living on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
She talked a lot about politics. She talked a lot about culture. She talked a lot about aesthetics. She talked a lot about a lot of things, and all of these things are important for living on Earth. But when it came down to a short answer, I call my philosophy objectivism, but informally I call it a philosophy for living on Earth.
This is correct.
It's like you're handing them a fistful of dollar bills.
Yeah.
I love that. So recently, Yaron Brook, speaking of fistful of dollar bills, Yaron Brook has made an interesting point on several occasions recently. And this will really kick it off. He said, if we continue GDP growth at the rate it's at now, 2-point-something percent, and we'll have inflation and ups and downs, but he's talking over the long term, this kind of growth for the next 40 years, then somebody who's at the borderline poverty level, somebody making call it $20,000. In 40 years, that person can expect to be making in real dollars, not in inflated dollars, $44,000 a year. In other words, all we've got to do is stay on the same track we're on right now. And in real dollars, in 40 years, you'll be making more than twice what you are now, just because of the way the economy works. And this proves out, consider where things were 40 years ago, consider what you can buy with real dollars now. But he said, now, if we had the kind of growth we should have, if our culture wasn't shot, if our politics weren't shot, if our economics weren't tied to the government and the Fed and the IRS and taxing and all of the other things that destroy capital, a modest gain of 5% a year sounds like a lot, but it's really not. A modest gain of 5% a year, and that same person making $20,000 a year in 40 years will be making over $1 million a year. Again, not inflated dollars, real dollars in today's value, over $1 million a year. It's about GDP growth. 40%, 5% growth, 40 years, 5% growth, over $1 million a year. There will be no poverty when people in the lowest incomes are making $1 million. Again, real wealth. Steven Pinker makes a similar point in his previous book, Enlightenment Now, and the one before that, The Better Angels of Our Nature. Great. Except that at the same time, right now, as we speak, and just about every podcast that I listen to, with people like Steven Pinker and Tim Ferriss and Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris and all of these leading kind of middle road, not middle of the road, but middle way intellectuals. At the same time, half of them or more are predicting the end of the world. So I want to answer the question.
As they always do. Yeah.
I want to answer the question, will we even live to see our 20,000 a year doubled or turned into $1 million in 40 years? So end of the world scenarios. If you're a podcast listener like me, you will know some of these. The obvious one, and it's everywhere, this is mainstream, it's in the newspapers, the Ice Age. Well, except now it's anthropogenic global warming, anthropogenic, anthropic people, anthropogenic. The genus of this is anthros, people. We're killing the planet. We're destroying the world. Anthropogenic global warming. Everybody just says climate change now, because then you can't really pin them down to anything. As evidence accumulates, though, as Yaron Brook will tell you, we will accommodate and remediate that. But what about, wait, it gets worse. What about the singularity? Artificial intelligence takes over the world.
Jennifer says, burning to a crisp.
Burning to a crisp. AI is going to take over the world, or at least, even if they don't try to fight us as humans, they'll be so elevated above us, they'll take over all the resources. Yeah. And we will be like ants while they're doing their amazing robot things. And worse than that, what about black balls?
I hate that when it happens. No, I'm kidding.
Now, if you've listened to Sam Harris, if you've listened to a few of these podcasters, the Weinstein brothers, you've heard this idea of the black ball theory. And the idea is like a lottery. You've got a bucket and it's full of white balls. And these white balls, each time you pull out a white ball, it's some good thing. Mm-hmm. You pull out a white ball and it's the internet. And you pull out another white ball and it's messenger RNA technologies. And you pull out another white ball and it's somebody won a spelling bee. Some of them are trivial and some of them are massive and change the world.
Yes.
But mixed in that lottery bucket, that barrel, that bunch of balls are some black balls. Mm-hmm. And the black balls are bad things that happen. So you have a war, you pull out a black ball and there's a war. The Afghanistan war lasts for 20 years. A bunch of Americans die, a whole bunch of Afghanis die. You pull out another black wall and it's, oh my God, it's COVID. And that one's pretty bad. Hundreds of thousands of people dying, yes. And all these remediations. The point is that one of those black balls is thermonuclear war. And one of those black balls is COVID, but with an Ebola level of toxicity and virulence. Now, if that's not enough, the singularity, black balls, anthropogenic, global warming, what about the culture war? Will 1984 happen? Oh, we're a little late. Will 1984 happen in 2024? And a lot of people out there are saying it's already happening. I could go on. These are really the big ones for me. So why am I so realistic? Oh, excuse me. Why am I so optimistic?
Wait.
With all of these possibilities, why do I say the realistic perspective is the optimistic perspective? Well, I'm not going to answer that for a couple of minutes. First, I want to take a look at the chat because we have Mary Lee is in the super chat. She's in for $3. Well, thank you for that.
And Jonathan Honig
is on board.
Superstar with 2 super chats.
Oh, 2 super chats.
2.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Jeff Bannister is on board from Canada as well. That's awesome because, of course, the super chat is like, oh my God, they really love me. They really love me. But even more than that, it does support the Ayn Rand Center UK.
Mary Aline, I like your little, what is this guy doing? He's blowing a kiss, I think.
Yeah, I think it's the Lemonhead guy blowing you a kiss from behind. You can see his tush there.
I like the tush.
It's saucy. It's good stuff there. So make sure I'm not missing anything important in the chat because, yes, we are on the Ayn Rand Center UK channel. Support the Ayn Rand Center UK. Go to Ayn Rand Center. It's RE. We'll put the link in the chat, aynrandcenter.co.uk/membership. Become a member.
Yes.
I'm a member. You should be a member.
I'm a member.
Wouldn't you like to be a member too?
Be a member.
Was that Dr. Pepper?
Yes.
Dr. Ayn Rand Center UK. Join in. But point is, your super chats also support the center. Very cool. We can be like Yaron. If you send us a super chat, we will make sure that we read it. And if you have a question, we will answer it.
Yes.
And I positively, absolutely guarantee that the answer to your question will be in English words. So there you go. Why am I so optimistic? Ice age, global warming, AI, singularity, black ball phenomenons, the culture war. I am optimistic because of peak oil. Does anybody remember peak oil? Does anybody remember when we were going to run out of oil?
We're going to run out of oil. Yep.
Well, fracking has kind of staved that off, but fracking can only go so far too. What is peak oil? They used to tell us we were going to run out of oil. We're going to run out of petroleum. We're going to run out of carbon fossil-based fuels. We're just going to run out of this stuff.
Yeah. It's going to be no more there. It's just, it'll be an earth without any more oil in it.
Exactly right. And that's how this used to be positioned, at least when I was a kid or 20s, maybe into my 30s.
Will deflate like a deflating, beach ball.
Well, what'll happen is you'll go to the gas pump and you'll be putting gas in, and then it runs out. And then you go to some other gas station, but like a week later, that one runs out. And maybe a couple weeks after that, they've all run out. And there's no more gas and we have to change everything or just don't drive cars anymore. Yeah, Jennifer says by 2000. Yes, absolutely. And then somebody figured out, well, that's not really the way that works. Imagine for a second, because this will happen. Imagine for a second we actually start running out of oil. In other words, we don't find something like fracking that extends it out another 50 or 100 years, and we actually start running out of oil. Well, we don't really run out. What happens is oil goes from being $40 a barrel to $100 a barrel and $500 and $1,000 a barrel. And gasoline goes from being $2 a gallon to $3 to $5 to $10. Now, for a lot of us, it would still be worth it to own a car and drive a car at $10 a gallon, but for some people it wouldn't. And they would slowly move into other technologies. Of course, hybrid vehicles would help them get that 70, 80, 100 miles to the gallon. A lot of people would go to using more Uber. A lot of people, where possible, would commute in other ways. If you're in a city, a lot of people, how many people in New York City actually own a car? The minority. Point is, you never run out of gas because that $10 a gallon gas lasts for a long, long time. And eventually it becomes $12 a gallon or $15, or people have made so many changes away from it, it doesn't go up at all because the demand is so low, they have to keep the prices low to make it happen. Point is, whole idea of peak oil is that you reach a peak in the availability of oil and then it starts coming down a little bit, but it never goes back to, oh, we've run out of oil. We never run out. The market takes care of that. And that same logic applies every time I hear any of these other end of the world scenarios. What's going to happen if we really are having an impact on the climate? We're going to accommodate that by making changes to our lifestyles. And like it or not, because our government will do this, we're going to remediate, whether that takes the form of carbon credits or other reductions, or hopefully takes the form of moving to other forms of energy that are actually reliable, unlike solar and wind, like nuclear energy, and even increased use of hydroelectric. We remediate and we accommodate. And the same thing is going to happen with artificial intelligence. We will never reach a singularity, because if in 2080, in 60 years, the robots are going to become self-replicating.
They'll say, exterminate, exterminate. That they'll just go around just saying that, and then they'll shoot little laser beams at you, and then you'll be murdered.
Yes. Why would they do that? I mean, why would they want to do that?
Maybe we would cheese them off some way.
That would imply they have values and wants and needs.
Yes, it would.
Now, to me, if there's any possibility of any of this, it's really going to be more a matter of they're going to use up all this stuff and not leave much for us. I don't think the robots are going to want to kill us, but if they're self-replicating, they're going to keep using all the resources. But here's the thing. You can say, well, in 2080, that will happen, that could happen, that might happen. Except that in 2055, when we get halfway there, we will have made the kind of changes to this trajectory that will stop that from happening. And it's not even like that, like we're going to get halfway there and say, oh, this is leading in a bad place, let's tweak it. Because halfway to 2055, and halfway to there, and halfway to next year, and halfway to next week, we improve these things, and we find risks and remediate those risks. And just like with peak oil, what you project happening if we don't change things now, if we keep going the way we're going for another 60 years, doesn't happen. We never keep going the way we're going for 60 years. And we will handle whatever the risks are associated with the singularity in the same way that we've handled everything else that we've handled. Does anybody remember computer viruses? You had to be careful which floppy disk you accepted and put in your computer, because you might get a virus.
Update the McAfee.
Yeah. Does anybody even use antivirus anymore, or do you just rely on what's built into the operating system? We've moved in that direction, and it's going to continue to get better. The risks will always be out there. The black balls will always be out there.
Yeah.
And yet we will deal with them as we have, because we are in a lower risk situation today in 2021 than we have ever been before. And this will ruffle a few feathers, at least among my friends, but I believe the same thing is true about the culture war.
I do too, actually. I agree with you, Robert. Yeah.
Do you now?
I do.
I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you.
This is going to be bad. The transgender phenomenon is bad. The CRT phenomenon is bad. These are issues, real issues. There really are transsexual people out there dealing with that, trying to figure out what to do. There really is, and much bigger than that, there really is racism out there.
Yeah.
People are figuring out what to do about that. And right now, the wrong people are doing the wrong things, and they're in charge.
For now.
For now.
Until people until people actually wake up, take back the word woke, and do what has always been done. I mean, this is Occupy Wall Street again. It is Occupy Wall Street. And it keeps coming up over and over again. And I think the only reason people really tolerated it in the last couple of years is because of the pandemic. And, the news just wanted something else to report on. And then people sunk their teeth into this whole issue of being woke and of defunding the police and all these other idiotic things because they didn't have anything better to do. Anyway, that's my theory. I think you're absolutely right. So yes, the reason I am so optimistic, is precisely about my bigger concern, and this is the point I'm going to make. It's going to be a short show today because I'm wearing this shirt. I'll explain that too. My bigger concern is the Disney movie Wall-E.
If you've seen the film Wall-E or Wall-E, a bit of a spoiler here. It takes place in the future, and it includes the scenario of the problems of production have been solved. So people spend all day lying around on chaise lounge chairs, sipping drinks with no purpose and nothing to do, but they've got everything they want. They're perfectly happy.
Eating bonbons. Watching mindless television.
Yeah, and they do this on the deck of a starship because they've destroyed the planet. Of course, you got to get the climate change thing in there. That's not the interesting part of that film to me. To me, the interesting part is what happens when the problem of production has been solved.
Do we all just sit on our duffs on our space couches and eat space food and watch space reality TV? I think not.
No, I intentionally snuck a poison pill in there. When I say the problem of production isn't a problem. Production isn't a bad thing. It's not something that nature imposes on you. And I can't resist bringing that up because how many times have you heard, and you're going to hear it again, well, people who don't want to work for a living shouldn't have to work for a living. Some of us just don't have that temperament. And as long as there's rich people in this country, I don't see why everybody should have to get a job. It's the craziest thing, but you're hearing it more and more these days.
Universal income.
Universal basic income. Why not? Some of us just don't have the ability or don't have the temperament for a 9 to 5. And why should anybody have to go into a factory and work hard for 10 hours a day while other people out there are living the life?
It's such it's presented so in such a wrong, horribly wrong way, and it just comes from a place of cynicism that the man is powerless, or the man is evil, or that as soon as as soon as you have the in other words, if you're on the USS Enterprise and you get your food from a replicator, the little door opens and you take the tray out and you eat, and no farms, just it comes out of thin air because of molecules or something, science. And so you have that, and you have indestructible roofs over your head and all of this stuff. So what do? And Jennifer in the chat says, learn violin. Yeah, well, there's some great comments in the chat. Maria says, what about comparative advantage? This all assumes that everybody's fungible, that my values are your values. What I want is what you want. Or if somehow we've produced everything we could ever want, as if robots are going to produce the music that we want to hear and the comedy that we'll find amusing. Mm-hmm. And somehow they will automate romance for you and everything that is of value. Yes. And Rob Abiera, who's unusually philosophical, asks the right question. Production of what? Exactly. Mm-hmm. Production of what? The problem of production. Well, when we call it a problem, we mean the basics of survival: food, shelter, clothing, safety. Everybody's got to have a cell phone. What do you mean they got to have a cell phone? Well, nowadays, to be safe, you got to have a cell phone. And besides, some degree of entertainment. Everybody deserves some degree of entertainment after all. And that means you need that universal basic income, because everybody should have air conditioning. And video games.
Air conditioning, that's a basic. Some places are really hot. It's actually unhealthy not to have air conditioning. Yeah. And some kind of amusement. Mm-hmm. The psychologists will tell you they've got to have a television. And there's not much on broadcast TV, so they've got to have cable TV. This
reminds me of the social workers building the Cortland homes in the Fountainhead.
Yes,
they have to have a gym. And they also need a swimming pool. And what about the poor slum children who need the whatever? And and
get rid of that park you were going to put in there. They'll hang out on the balconies. That's what they're used to.
The balconies. What more notes do you have?
Well,
yes. Tell me, great sage Robert.
What's interesting to me is that as bright as the future is, you have this idea, this Wall-E idea that we're going to all be bored. We won't need to do anything, so we won't want to do anything other than sip a drink and lay in a chair. What puts the lie to that is the fact that all values are values to and for someone. And who is that someone? It's a person. It's a human being. It's you. It's me. It's that guy over there. It's this gal over here. Human life values are human-sized, human-shaped, human scope.
Yes.
What about boredom? You remember being a teenager and being bored? I'm bored. There's nothing to do.
No, it's because I felt like I was not empowered in my life because I wasn't independent. I was still living at my mom's. But yeah, I do remember.
Yeah. Well, what would your parents say if you said, tell us in the chat, folks, if you go to your mom, you go to your dad, whoever you grew up with, and said, as a teenager or, young teenager, tweener, whatever, I'm bored. There's nothing to do. Well, Jennifer says I was always doing something, but I remember that feeling. I remember
I do.
As a teenager, it's the weirdest thing now. I remember being bored.
Yep. There's nothing to do.
I haven't been bored in 40 years. What it really meant when you said there's nothing to do is what you really meant was there's nothing to do that I want to do.
Right.
There's nothing to do that feels like it's worth doing.
Yes.
Boredom.
So when I was a socialist, when I was a teenage socialist, I would think, wouldn't it be great to have socialism and communism, or, as long as there's no bloodshed. And then, the problem of production will be solved. We'll, share into share the great pool of wealth, and no one will be without. Everybody will have exactly what they need. And it'll be a utopia and everyone will be very happy. And well, and so Robert and I were talking earlier today, and I thought, intellectuals who think that, intellectuals who think, well, now that we want to have socialism and everything automated and AI running, artificial intelligence running everything, then there's going to be that black ball coming at us, and it's, the robots will want to take over the earth and be mean to us. I mean, what is it that they are ignoring here? What is it that they're ignoring? And Mary-Aline, thank you, Mary-Aline, for the super chat. She says, she was talking about how people believe that work is onerous, that work is
something the universe is imposing on you.
A necessary evil.
Yeah.
And that you don't get any kind of value out of it other than just, I'm going to go to the factory and I'm going to get my paycheck. Then I'm going to be a weekend warrior. But, there's so much more to that. And these intellectuals, they're missing a big, huge component of this whole of reality, of the fact that when you work, you actually get the kind of spiritual value that you get from your sense of pride in your own work, your sense of achievement, your sense of growth as a human being, and being intellectually engaged, even, keeping yourself rising above your next job level. It's a wonderful thing. And it's not just a paycheck. And the thing that the intellectuals or the socialists completely ignore, when they're talking about the robots are going to take over the world and singularity and blah, blah, blah. Well, Robert's right. You've got every 5 years, every year, every month, people are on it. People are maintaining that, those computer systems. People are maintaining the programs and the software and the intelligent, artificial intelligence. They're making sure that there are no bugs, and they're making sure that there is going to be no singularity. And the socialists completely dismiss it. People are going to be like, like an idiocracy. Same thing in Wall-E, where the people are sitting on their toilets eating, watching reality television shows, and getting burgers out of vending machines. And it completely ignores the fact that people want to work. People find value in working. People want to solve problems. People want to have that new dawn of thought in their mind, that creativity that they actually bring to the world. And yeah, so that's always going to be around, hopefully, barring any catastrophes, but I don't see them coming. What do you think?
I think you might have summed that up better than I would. The one thing that I have left to say is this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this isn't something I have to say. See if you recognize this.
Yeah.
The virtue of productiveness is the recognition of the fact that productive work is the process by which man's mind sustains his life. The process that sets man free of the necessity to adjust himself to his background, as all animals do, and gives him the power to adjust his background to himself.
Mm-hmm.
Productive work is the road to man's unlimited achievement and calls upon the highest attributes of his character, his creative ability, his ambitiousness, his self-assertiveness, his refusal to bear uncontested disasters, his dedication to the goal of reshaping the earth in the image of his values. Productive work does not mean the unfocused performance of the motions of some job. It means the consciously chosen pursuit of a productive career in any line of rational endeavor, great or modest, on any level of ability. It is not the degree of a man's ability, nor the scale of his work that is ethically relevant here, but the fullest and most purposeful use of his mind. Productive work is the central purpose of a rational man's life, the central value that integrates and determines the hierarchy of all of his other values. Reason is the source, the precondition of his productive work, and pride is the result.
Good on you, Miss Rand. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Heck to the yeah.
She's so great.
Christopher Hitchens, in talking about religion, said, well, religious people have this idea that the universe was designed with you in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And the contrary to that would seem to be the universe wasn't designed with you in mind, but in a very real sense, the universe is exactly suited and shaped to you because you are part of the universe and it is your nature to exist in the universe. We adapt ourselves to the facts. Nature to be commanded must be obeyed. We adapt ourselves to the facts, and that is what we will do. And not just in 60 years, but today, and tomorrow, and next week, and next year, and in the next decade. And by the time we get to 60 years from now, having done that in every day and every moment, the future is going to be more like that $1 million a year future than that $44,000 a year future. The most important thing we can do to make sure that happens is live good lives ourselves. The second most important thing we can do to make sure that happens is to support and participate in organizations and activism that staves off the people who would stop that from happening, to fight for reason, for purpose, for self-esteem.
And support Ayn Rand Center UK and become a member.
So the answer is design a life based on your specific values and live it. Those values arise out of not just your nature, but your spirit, your soul, your psychology, your temperament, your sense of life, you. So make a plan to get what you want out of this life and follow it. I cannot overemphasize that that is the number one thing you will do to save the future, is to live a good life yourself. Accept reality and then make your life on Earth or your life in space magnificent.
And if you were living in space, you wouldn't have any mosquitoes.
No mosquitoes in
No
space.
mosquitoes.
We're going to leave that out when we terraform wherever we're headed to. That's my bottom line. But with one more thing to say, why I mentioned the shirt. What's the shirt got to do with all this crazy shirt?
I love the shirt.
Yeah. Well, what do we got? Dunn's River Falls, Montego Bay. This is the shirt, a shirt that I bought on my honeymoon.
Yeah.
And
you haggled for it. He haggled for it.
I did. I haggled at the market for this shirt because, of course, it's a touristy shirt. And
you got to haggle.
Tell all the tourists, yes, this is a $25 or whatever Jamaican dollars were at the time shirt. So no, I can give you $15 for that shirt. Oh no, that back and forth. Fun stuff. I don't even remember what the numbers were, but it was so much fun.
Oh, it was great.
And we have the money. It's just that's part of the process. So my wedding anniversary, the anniversary of when this shirt was purchased, is coming up next Thursday.
That is right.
I know Rozzy, the Lord and Savior, our Lord Emperor, excuse me.
Lord Emperor.
Lord Emperor of all things Ayn Rand Center UK, mentioned that next Thursday is Thanksgiving.
Yay.
And it sounded like everybody's going to take the day off.
Oh, well, okay.
Next Thursday, November 25th, is our actual wedding anniversary.
That is right.
So we might not be around either. If we are, it'll be on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Robert Nasir.
Yeah. I do have one quote before we go, but
yes.
So Robert named this show "The Future Is at Hand," and that actually, I, unlike the wonderful James Valiant, I have never actually sat down and read the entire Bible.
The Bible,
the Bible,
like the Bible, the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament Bible.
So I have this poem actually from one of my favorite books. It's the Halloween Reader. And
can't go wrong with the Halloween Reader.
And there's actually a quote in this poem from Ecclesiastes. I think that's how you say it.
Yes.
Ecclesiastes. Right.
9:10.
Yes. So, and the translation in this poem, and it may be a little bit different than you've heard. So the future is at hand. And I thought of hand, and I thought of work, and I thought of how wonderful work is. Whatsoever thy hand shall find thee to do, that do with thy whole might, or thou shalt rue. For no man is wealthy or wise or brave in that quencher of might be's and would be's, the grave. So before
real good.
Yeah, before you die, whatever you find at hand, do it with all your might.
Whatsoever thy hand shall find thee to do, that do what thy whole might, or thou shalt rue. For no man is wealthy or wise or brave in that quencher of might be's and would be's, the grave.
We're all going there someday, folks.
Would have, could have, and should have, are things we never say.
And don't let the intellectuals, the bad intellectuals, get you down and tell you that everything's going to hell and life is black balls.
So with our 21st anniversary right around the corner, in fact, we're going to renew our vows.
Yes.
Can you believe it? Still ready to say I do? Well, we'll see on Saturday when that happens.
Well, I don't know. It just might, Robert may say,
I've talked optimism a few times, and I thought I would ground that a little better. I couldn't resist doing an optimistic episode because anniversary. When we come back, whether it's next Thursday, the 25th, or December 2nd, whichever Thursday it turns out to be, I'll try to come up with something far more pessimistic for you. But in the meantime, if you are available to join us on Clubhouse, that's what you should do. We're going to go over there. You can talk back to us, like with your voice and not just your chat.
Yeah, and
the chat has been awesome today.
And thanks again, Jeff. Jeff says, have a great weekend.
Jeff in Canada is in for another $5, and thank you for that. Thank you, and especially thank you for chiming in and talking to us. But we're going to go on Clubhouse. You can join us. If you're not going to Clubhouse, or after you're done going on Clubhouse, I do recommend you go to YouTube, listen to that lecture, How to Leverage Objectivism to Become a Leader in Your Field. Again, it's not just about leadership, becoming a leader, becoming a manager, it's really just how to use this stuff. It's a good, very early lecture from Alex, and you should absolutely listen to that.
It's good. And
yes. So thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us on our anniversary week episode. And I'm telling you, we're going to go through hell. We've got a rocky road ahead of us. I'm not a Pollyanna. But in the long run, and even in the short run, things are going to be amazing. So welcome to Life on Earth.